So today we're doing a deep dive into some really fascinating ancient text. We're looking at commentaries on verses linked to the Buddha.
That's right. We've got two specific stories from a Dhammapada commentary. Story 139, the Vipassakabhikkhuvatthu, and story 142, the Aṅgulimālattheravatthu.
Okay.
And these aren't just dry texts. They give us these vivid glimpses into actual events, specific teachings.
And how they really change people's lives.
Exactly. Dramatic transformations.
So our goal here is to unpack these stories. What are the key takeaways about reality itself and maybe our potential for change?
Yeah, we want to see how simple things, like just looking at bubbles, apparently led to huge insights.
And also tackle how, according to these texts, even a really difficult past might not block the path to liberation.
It's pretty interesting stuff. Some surprising bits about how meditation was taught, and then there's this incredibly dramatic story of transformation.
Okay, let's jump into that first story then, number 139. Where does it start?
It starts in a very famous place, Jetavana Monastery. And we have this group of 500 monks.
500? Wow. Meditating.
Yes, they'd actually gotten their meditation instructions directly from the Buddha.
Oh, okay. So they had the best possible start.
You'd think so. They went off to the forest, put in the work, but the source says they were apatavisa.
Meaning
they hadn't achieved those special results, the spiritual breakthroughs they were aiming for.
Ah, okay. So they sort of hit a wall, maybe. Frustrating.
It seems so. So they decided, right, let's go back to the Buddha, get some more instruction.
Makes sense. And something happened on the way back.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. As they're walking, they see a mirage.
A mirage, like, shimmering heat waves on the road.
Exactly. The Pali word is marichi. But instead of just noting it and moving on,
They did something with it.
they started meditating on the mirage. Right there.
Huh. Using whatever's right in front of them.
It really shows that readiness, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it didn't stop there. The sources say, immediately after they got back into the monastery grounds, it started pouring rain.
Okay.
And they're standing there, maybe under eaves or in doorways, watching the rain come down.
And they see.
Water bubbles, babuka, forming super quickly in the puddles and then pop. Gone.
Just like that.
And again, it wasn't just a casual glance. The text says they took the bubbles as their meditation object. Arta Susu.
Focusing on the bubbles popping.
Yes. And this very simple, everyday observation sparked this huge insight. Spontaneously,
What was the insight?
they realized this body, meaning their own physical existence, is just like a bubble. It arises and breaks up. That's the translation of Ayapi atapavo upachita vichanatena bueasa disoivati.
Wow. Connecting their own life to something so fleeting.
Exactly. It's a direct seeing of impermanence reflected right there in the rain. It wasn't abstract anymore.
That's powerful. And what about the Buddha? Was he aware of this?
Apparently, yes. The source says that from his room, the perfumed hut, he saw them, saw their state of mind.
And he intervened.
He radiated light, sort of like speaking directly to their minds, the text implies, and then he spoke a specific verse, a gatha.
Okay, what did the verse say?
He said, as one would see a bubble, as one would see a mirage, so seeing the world, the king of death does not see that person.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Right, so the commentary helps here. It defines marichika, the mirage, as maya, illusion.
Illusion. Like things aren't what they seem.
Precisely. The commentary uses the analogy of seeing houses in a mirage. They look real from afar.
But when you get closer, poof, nothing
That's
there.
exactly. You can't grasp them. They're empty, void. It's using that to explain the nature of perceived reality.
And the verse connects the bubble and the mirage to the world, loka, but not the planet.
The source is very specific. It says world here means the world of aggregates. Kandiluluke.
The aggregates. That's our body, feelings, perceptions, mental stuff, consciousness, right? The components of experience.
That's it. So the verse is saying, if you truly see this world, these aggregates you cling to as me and mine, if you see them like a bubble.
Arising and passing away quickly.
And like a mirage.
Empty, illusory, ungraspable.
Then the king of death, Makarija, which represents, mortality, suffering's grip.
He does not see that person. Makurijana pasatithiyato. You're beyond his reach somehow.
That's the core meaning according to the source. It's a fundamental shift in perception that leads to freedom.
And the result for these monks, after all that struggle in the forest.
This is the really striking part. The source says, right at the end of that discourse, right after hearing that verse,
Yes.
All 500 of them attained arhatship, full liberation. Hida Taniyeva Arahatara Papuchisuti. Just like that, standing right where they were.
Wow. That's incredibly fast after hitting that wall earlier.
It really sounds instantaneous, doesn't it?
Does the commentary explain why it happened so fast for them? Was their earlier effort useless, or did it somehow set the stage?
Well, the implication is definitely that the earlier effort wasn't wasted. It prepared the ground.
Ah, okay.
They've been cultivating their minds, practicing diligently. So seeing the bubbles, hearing the Buddha's verse, it wasn't happening in a vacuum.
It was like the final trigger.
Exactly. The
Right.
catalyst that brought all their previous practice to fruition. It led to that direct, complete understanding of impermanence and non-self.
Which the source connects directly to arhatship.
Yes, it explicitly frames this insight as the arahamagga, the path to arhatship. They were ready, and this was the final push they needed.
That's fascinating. It sort of challenges the idea that enlightenment has to be this long, drawn-out, painful process always.
It suggests that sometimes, with the right preparation and the right trigger, insight can dawn very, very quickly.
What really stands out to you here, how these simple, fleeting things, bubbles, mirages, when seen in the right way by a prepared mind, become the key to everything. Okay, so that first story gives us this path of breakthrough through direct observation, seeing the nature of things. But the second story, number 142, is, well, it's quite different. Much more dramatic.
Oh, absolutely. This one involves the elder Aṅgulimāla.
A figure with a really notorious backstory involving violence.
Extremely notorious.
Yeah.
But the source confirms, yes, he did become an elder, the Raro, and he did attain arhatship, arahatai papu.
So he achieved complete liberation despite his past.
That's what the text states. And it says after his liberation, he was in seclusion, just experiencing the bliss of that freedom, vimutti sukha savedi.
And he expressed this.
He did.
Yeah.
He uttered an inspired verse and an udana reflecting on his own journey.
What did his verse say?
It's quite powerful. Whoever was heedless before afterwards is not heedless. He illuminates this world just as the moon is freed from a cloud.
Yokapobe pamajitva pachasona pamajati somaloka pavasiti appamutova kandimati. That really speaks to transformation. From heedless to illuminating the world.
It does. Then the story jumps forward in time. Aṅgulimāla has passed away, attained parinirvana, that's the final nirvana after death.
Okay.
And some monks are gathered in the Dharma hall talking.
Wondering about him, I guess.
Exactly. Wondering where he was reborn. You know, the natural questions people ask.
And the Buddha comes in?
Yes, he arrives, asks what the discussion is about. They tell him, we're talking about Aṅgulimāla's rebirth.
And the Buddha's response?
He clarifies things immediately. He says, my son, referring to Aṅgulimāla, has attained parinirvana, parinibbūto. He's not reborn anywhere.
Which must have surprised the monks, given his history.
Understandably so. The source captures their reaction perfectly.
What did they ask?
They basically ask, how is that possible? How could someone, having killed so many people, take manusamardva, attain parinirvana, parinibbūtoti?
Yeah, from a straightforward karmic view, cause and effect, it seems like that path should have consequences.
Right, and this is where the Buddha's explanation, according to the source, is absolutely crucial.
What does he say?
He explained that, yes, Aṅgulimāla committed terrible acts before because he lacked a good friend. Ikaskalia mitai alabitva. He didn't have that positive guiding influence.
Okay, so the lack of support was a factor.
A key factor, it seems. But afterwards, Pacha, he did find that good friend, the Buddha himself, implicitly as a condition, pakaya labitva.
And finding that support changed him.
It enabled the change. Because then he became not heedless, apamadawahosi. He turned things around. He became diligent in the practice.
So it's the combination, finding support and making the effort to become heedful.
Exactly. And the Buddha concludes that because of this fundamental shift, this turning away from heedlessness and engaging fully in the skillful path.
His past evil deeds, what happened to them?
Ayapapa kama, his evil kama, was abandoned by kama, that is skillful, wholesome, kusalina payananti.
Abandoned by skillful kama. That's a really striking phrase. Does the source tell us exactly what skillful, wholesome kusalina refers to in his case?
It does, very clearly. The commentary states that kusalina here specifically means the path of arhatship itself. Arahata magasa hayavuta.
So it wasn't just doing good deeds later. It was the profound kama of achieving arhatship that abandoned the old kama.
That's the specific explanation given. The transformative power of attaining our hardship itself is presented as the skillful karma that overrides or abandons the potential results of the past evil deeds.
Wow, okay, but how does that actually work? Is it like the past deeds are erased, or is it more that the mind has changed so fundamentally that the old seeds can't sprout?
Yeah.
How should we, or you, the listener, understand abandoned? It feels different from a simple tit-for-tat view of karma.
That's a great question. The text generally suggests the second interpretation. It's not amnesia or erasure. The past happened, but the conditions needed for that negative karma to ripen in a future life are fundamentally altered and even eliminated by the purification that comes with our hardship.
So the soil is no longer fertile for those old seeds.
That's a good analogy. The mind stream that performed the original actions is transformed. The path of our hardship creates a new reality for that individual, where that old karma simply doesn't have the same ground to manifest its results. It shows just how radical the transformation can be.
And just like with the first story, hearing this explanation had an impact on the listeners.
Yes, the source notes that too. At the end of this discourse, many in the audience attained spiritual fruits, like stream entry Bhavusala Pedophiladini Pabuchisuti.
So understanding this possibility of transformation was itself transformative for them.
It seems so. It highlights the power of this teaching. So for you listening, the really fascinating point here is this idea that significant past negativity can be abandoned through a later skillful path. It prompts the question, doesn't it? What does it really mean for an action to be abandoned by skillfulness? And what does it say about our own potential for change and the importance of finding those supportive conditions, that good friend? So when we put these two stories side by side, these narratives from the commentary.
Yeah, you start seeing some interesting connections, but also contrasts.
Definitely. Both clearly end with reaching the highest goal, our hatship for the monks, parinirvana for Aṅgulimāla, liberation.
But the way they got there seems quite different.
Very different angles. The monk's path involved this almost sudden insight triggered by observing reality directly, seeing bubbles, seeing mirages, and bam, understanding impermanence and emptiness.
Very observational, very insight-driven.
Whereas Aṅgulimāla's story is more about a process, isn't it?
Mm.
It emphasizes turning away from a negative state, heedlessness,
Pamajitva turning into apamato, not heedless.
and actively engaging in the skillful path, the Arahata, which was made possible, crucially, by finding that good friend, the Kalyanjabita.
So one feels more like a flash of insight, the other a determined transformation supported by relationship and practice.
Yet look at the result. Both lead to a kind of profound seeing or illuminating. The monks see the world differently and escape death's grasp.
And Aṅgulimāla illuminates this world like the clear moon, free from the clouds of his past actions and heedlessness.
Both paths overcome suffering, overcome bondage, just via different mechanisms highlighted in the stories.
And it's important maybe that both stories are framed as these teaching moments, these Dharma discourses, that actually helped other people right then and there gain insight too.
Exactly. They weren't just telling stories about the past. The telling itself was part of the path for those listening.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive today, we've explored these two really rich narratives from your sources. We saw how one emphasizes gaining huge insights just from looking closely at fleeting things like bubbles or mirages.
Seeing that impermanent, illusory nature of reality.
And the other story showing the incredible power of transformation, of a skillful path, especially when supported by positive influences, a good friend, to overcome even a very dark past.
They really offer these complementary views, don't they? One highlights rapid insight, the other radical change through effort and connection.
So here's a final thought, something for you to maybe reflect on from these ancient stories. First, how might your own experience change if you started consciously looking at things, challenges, thoughts, even your sense of self as being like a bubble, constantly arising and passing, or like a mirage, maybe not as solid as it appears?
And second, what does Aṅgulimāla's story suggest to you about your own capacity for change? How much potential is there to overcome past patterns, your own forms of heedlessness, perhaps? And critically, what role might finding supportive conditions, those good friends, play in making that transformation possible for you?